You are now entering the Luxecore Studios. And you've secured a seat for the Protecting Your Radius podcast. Here, we build connections from your contracting profession to some of the top bleeding edge products and services. Don't get deterred. Let's not delay. Here is your host, Nathan Downs.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Protecting Your Radius podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Downs, and on today's episode, we have my friend, my website guru, my marketing manager, Benji McKinney with CleverFox.Online. Benji, how you doing, bud?
Doing good, man.
Glad to finally get you on the podcast. So we have Benji. We've talked about this, and I know you've been on Dan Blanc's show. I know you've been on all sorts of different shows. One thing that's special about you is you and I share a lot of commonality, funny enough, and so much so that I hired you a little over a year ago on the top of a building smoking cigars in New Orleans. And the reason being was because, I don't know if you remember our conversation, but like I had done some delving into websites and stuff a long time ago. Like 15, 20 years ago, and found out that you've been doing it for over 15 years yourself.
Right.
And that there was so much commonality there. I just knew that I have not kept up with all of that stuff, right? Now I'm a fence guy, I'm in construction. And just to hear your background and your story, and have so many things in common with you, I was like, I love working with people that we have similar things, like similar shared characteristics, I guess. I don't want to work with people that are just like me, but I do like to have that one thread of commonality. So in saying that, I'm a multi-time college dropout. Unfortunately, I just wasn't all about the education system. And your background is very similar to mine, except you stayed in marketing and doing all that stuff. So tell everybody you're the man. So let's just talk about you for a second, bud.
Well, I've been doing it for over 15 years, like you said, and got into website development first, website design. And the more I dove into the whole field, gravitated me towards that was my artistic approach to things. I always loved to draw, and I thought I was going to go into graphic design at one point, like as a full-time career, and then really fell in love with the marketing aspect of things. And what I love so much about the marketing piece is helping people get started is like a passion of mine. I think that a lot of people don't know where to start. So I kind of feel like a guide, if you will. So like sometimes it's like me just helping them figure out the first bits and pieces of the process, and sometimes it's about like me just learning new things with them as well. Now that we're, 60 plus fence contractors in, I can't tell you, I'd never built a fence, but I know a lot more about fence now than I did 2 years ago.
Right.
But it's about that process, and it's about learning that really kind of kept me in this field and really kind of captured the vision and the mission, if you will, of what CleverFox.Online is about. And the whole point of helping people get online, helping people polish their brand and get all of the marketing pieces together to just shine the way that they want them to shine, better represent who they are and what they do as a business.
Yeah. And that's what, I wanted to bring you on today, Benji, to talk about, because I wanted to focus this conversation pretty much strictly about branding and how important that is. A lot of people, even in my own marketplace, they'll see Radius and they'll see what we're doing and how we come across. They're like, how have I never heard about you? Like, you guys are the biggest fence company in town? I'm like, yeah, sure. But it's because of exactly that. It's because of the branding, because they see this and we've had people call in and they go, are you guys a local company? Or are you out of state and you subcontract in? And I'm like, okay, well, that's not good. But at the same time, it goes back to my branding. Like it matters, and people see that this commonality across the board, this constant look, and just like things you've done with like Fence King and some of these other places. Let's kind of break into why is branding important? Like, why are we talking about that today, Benji?
I think it's because it's the impression that you make on your target audience, or the impression you intend on making. So, a lot of people think of brand and they think of an actual brand, like you brand cattle or something like that. And that's where your mind goes. But when we talk about brand integrity and we talk about building your brand, we're actually talking about building an image for your company, something that can connect with your targets. So that's one of the reasons why it's really important. It's marketing 101 to know your target audience and know who you're branding for. But that's important. It really is. It's a foundation of this. And that's why a brand could make you look like a multi-million-dollar company, or it can make you look like someone who's just getting started, maybe a little small family operated business, just getting the groundworks. You can do a lot with your overall brand besides your logo and everything else. Those are all assets that play into your brand. So creating and starting out with a foundation of brand is extremely important for your business.
Yeah. I think about like relating that to something that happened even today. I just got a contract come back in, and it's like $150,000 contract. And that company doesn't know that we're a new company. Like, they don't really care. But the whole conversation, because of the way that I set up my branding, because of the way that we come across all of everything from my business card to, how we handle phone calls and emails and everything, as far as they're concerned, we've been around for 20, 30 years, right? So there's never that conversation, because that is an awkward conversation, Benji, especially in construction when you're newer. I never give anybody that chance. I knew that when we started from day one, I want us to make it look like we're a bunch of big shots, even if we hadn't done anything yet, So, because I didn't want that to hamper us, I didn't want that to hold us back. So one thing to start with was I often see new guys and gals when they start a business. They'll do things that make sense, kind of like I set up a company, so I have this new LLC. So I'm going to call my new fence company Downs Fence LLC, right? And because it's going to show my clients I'm a legitimate company, it has my name in it, right? And what I do. So with that scenario, because a lot of people do those three things, to be fair, when you start out, when you're just brand, yeah. What do you think about those? Because I'm sure you have opinions like I do on that, right?
So when you put your name in it, there's a lot of things you can play off of. You can, I hear a lot of people that we're so proud that we put our name on our fence, that type of thing, or we're so proud that we're so proud of our product that we put our name on it. And those are definitely legitimate things, and I think those things matter. Naming your company is more important than you think at first.
Agree.
CleverFox wasn't always CleverFox.Online, honestly. Our name change happened, I think, 3 years ago. So we started off with a very awkward name. And so the name kind of evolves for certain businesses. And so when you're just starting out, if you're using your family name, your surname, or you're using your name, whatever, just keep in mind long-term, where is this going to take you? Where do you want to go? Do you want to branch out? What kind of client do you really want? And also think about the smaller aspects too. like, how do you explain your name? Like, how did you come up with that? So if you come up with some off the wall name, you need to be able to explain how you came about that name. And so the foundation, like naming your company, is extremely important. Also doing some research to figure out, what other names are you going to be competing with? I mean, that's straight up simple. If you're planning on, business only in the Broken Arrow, Oklahoma area, Broken Arrow Fence Company sounds like a great name. But if you're going to be branching, maybe going into Arkansas or, wherever, you're going to branch out in some other places, you probably need to think about that name again and make sure that that's the right name for you.
Yeah.
So I think as a lot goes into naming a business, and you really have to give it a lot of thought.
Yeah, for sure. That was one of the things, Benji, I think you brought up a good point. When I started thinking about what I wanted to name my company, I called my brother, who's an author, right? He's written some books for Simon & Schuster and working with Legendary right now on some, what are they called? Not adult comics. What are those things called? The big books with all the real fancy pictures. Oh my gosh. Are they adult? Anyways. Young.
Sounds like it's going down another.
Yeah. It ain't that. Graphic novels is what they call them. Thank you. Jeez. But I called him up, and in about 2.5 hours, we had come up with the name Radius. So we started with all sorts of different options. I was like on these old like Greek and Roman like weapons and like shields. And I said, oh yeah, we're going to come. And he kept asking me, he's like, you just don't want to use Downs? I'm like, nah, I'm not using my name. It's a little too on the cheek to me. I would rather operate under the guise of people don't know that I'm the owner. So that was one reason I didn't want to use my name in it. I know some people have used their kids' names and stuff, or taking your name and making a hybrid. I think of like a Chris Steele, like the high Steele. That is actually cool. Downs is not cool. I mean, you got people like Matt Warner calling me, Debbie Downer Fence or something. I mean, yeah, that wouldn't be cool. So, but when we came up with Radius, I wanted to develop something here and make something that we could scale to whatever I want it to be, whether we just wanted to stay in the Tulsa, Oklahoma, Northeast Oklahoma market, or we wanted to expand or do whatever, that we could do that. And it was, I had to come up with a name and a logo and all these different things that gave me what my goals were intended. Right. So that's how we got there with that. And then I think incorporating things like Benji, you talked about, hold on, time out. The LLC thing. Okay. Nobody cares that you're an LLC. Don't put it in your name. Like, we get it. You're a company. Congratulations. You may be young. That may be a big deal for you. Honestly, it is a big deal, Benji. Wouldn't you agree? I think it's a big deal. You need to be a company. I've already talked about that on the podcast. That being said, no one gives a crap if you're an LLC, if you're a sub S, if you're a sole proprietor. No one cares. Don't put it on your stationery. Don't put it in your name. Don't just leave it off. You're a company. We get it. It almost seems to me as a consumer, because Benji, like you, I'm very brand aware, like brand conscious, is when I see that, it actually makes me think you're a little more like you don't know the business stuff when I see that than if you didn't have it on there. Right.
Right.
So not every consumer's that way, but I would say the techie or T type people out there that, they're going to see that and be like, all right, we get it. You're an LLC, whatever. But sorry, that was a tangent. I know I've saw that even on some guys' stuff down at FenceTrac. And I always think that, I was like, oh, drop the LLC, man. You can just be the company. It's cool. We know you're a company. Like, we know your name's not, Georgia Fence or whatever.
I usually, and I'm not a lawyer by any means, but I usually do recommend that people leave it out of their logo, but in your footer, in your copyright area, it's a good place to put LLC, or if you're a DBA or a subsidiary,
right?
Those types of. That's the proper place to put it. It's really not for branding purposes. It's really for legal purposes.
Love that. Yeah, like ours, we're Liminal Corporation Incorporated, technically. And then we're doing businesses, Radius Perimeter Security, Radius Fencing Gate, all these other, variations. So, the logo. I was even thinking, and I wanted to I've really kind of honed this conversation down on a conversation that I mentioned at FenceTrac in Oklahoma City that we had at that Ash Cigar Bar with old Kevin and Steve.
Yes.
And it was so good. I wish for everyone, did I not say this is sooner done? I said, I wish I would have had a camera recording the three of us talk for like an hour about Kevin and Steve's business card. So Benji, take us back in time, invite everyone into the story of us sitting there having a drink, smoking a cigar in Oklahoma City, talking about Kevin and Devin's business card.
Yeah. So it was a great opportunity to sit down and talk with someone who's just starting out and, he did a lot of things correct, but he's also needs someone with a good eye to polish and guide him. And so I think, I loved how Devin was like, no, I want you to do that. Just lay it on me. What is it? What is it that, he was so proud of his card.
Yeah.
He should be.
Yeah.
It's an accomplishment when you open the doors to business and, you need that pride. You need that drive. He definitely has the passion, and it shows because he was so proud. And that's what makes it so hard. I've had to have some very complicated and very difficult conversations. I actually told a client once, and it wasn't in the fence industry, but I told a client once, I was like, okay, we have a problem with your logo. And here are the things that are wrong with your logo. And I went into like a 20 or 30 minute spiel about the technicalities of their logo and how it was hindering their brand. And after finishing, he was like, yeah, my wife drew that. So, like, oh. My first thought is always like, oh, is she like a graphic designer? Is she a marketing specialist? Of course, you don't say that, but right. That's what I'm thinking.
Right.
Most guys that have worked with me know that I'm not a yes man. So like, if you tell me, your opinion, if I tell you something, it's based on my knowledge and based on my experience. If you argue with me and you say, I don't really like that, I'm going to reinforce why I believe what I do and the experience that I've had. So, that's one of the things that I feel like, it's important to understand before you start working with Benji at CleverFox, because I don't hold back when it comes to that stuff, and I hate to do it. But yeah, you and I had a conversation with Devin. We're like, you and I were giggling a little bit, but just because of some of the things that, we know that, don't work really well. So, of course, he's using a Gmail account, and a lot of people will argue like, what the hell's wrong with using a Gmail account, right? But hinders your overall brand because anybody can get a Gmail account.
That's right.
You can go out, create 20 Gmail accounts, for whatever you want. And your email should speak to your brand. You need to have certain assets in place, like your domain name. That's like, that's just as important as registering your business as an LLC or anything else. You need to register your business in a domain format, and you need to own that domain format. Now, a lot of guys have that, but then they still don't understand the email concept. And there is some technicalities to emails, as setting them up, managing them, finding out how those work and how your email client works. And Gmail's so easy.
Yeah.
That's the reason why everybody can do it. And I don't, commend you do that. It's one of those things that like, it's kind of a no-no. Even if it's your company name at gmail.com, it's still a solid move when it comes to setting up your brand.
It makes me think, Benji, like part-time, I do this on the nights and weekends. I'm not really in it. And as you know, Google just released their next, version of the G Suite, and it's $6 a month.
Yeah.
Like, what are we talking about? Like, I should never see another @Gmail business account ever for $6 a month. So immediately in my mind as a consumer, and because it matters to like people like you and I, but I automatically think, I'm like, oh no, this guy, gal, this is bad. It's bad.
Yeah.
Like,
now, and again, I mean, I'll mention this. I've been involved, and I think I even told this story to Devin so he can understand like the difference, but plays both ways. So like I was a part of a marketing division for a wholesale real estate company. And one of the things that we learned is that the target market were people that were down on their luck. They needed to get out of their house quick. Either, they owed a lot in taxes or, there somehow was, needed to get out of their property fast or, they inherited the home or those types of things. We created all kinds of nice, fancy signs to put out with a nice, beautiful, polished brand. And what we found out was the guys who were handwriting their signs with a Sharpie got more calls than we got.
Mm-hmm.
Because the target market was different. We were targeting by using a brand that looked like it had been around for decades. We were actually limiting our target market. So you had to flip it. So in other words, we needed to come up with a design that looked like a handwritten signs and kind of downplay our branding, so to speak.
Yeah. So
it really is important to do that. So like for some people, using an @Gmail, if that's what they're shooting for is, smaller clients or whatever, or clients you want to think that they're, that you want them to know that you're just getting started, those types of things. But I highly recommend if you're creating a strong brand, you're trying to work on your integrity for your brand and you're working on your strategy for your brand, make your domain name part of that. Like you said, Google Workspace is just too easy not to do.
Right.
And you can, just so you guys know, if you need to know technical side of it, your domain can be hosted with GoDaddy. It doesn't matter where your domain's hosted. You basically are pointing an MX record from your domain host over to Google, and it's stupid easy. It really is.
Yeah, and for $49.99, you can contact CleverFox.Online to have them set up your G's. No, just kidding. I don't know if it's $49.99. Just made that up.
No, it's more than.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, I was about to say like $499.99 or something, but anyways. So when we continued the conversation and talked about that, I thought I love this because of your, graphics background, right, in marketing. You had mentioned something that I thought was really cool with Devin's logo, because he's got this really sweet looking logo. But as we found out on his shirt and on his business card, depending on the color of the background, like that thing got like wild. Like you could tell what was going on, right? I mean, it's just crazy. Like everything looked like it was like that. And you're like, all right, what's happening? So your recommendation to him was.
So I can share my screen. I think if this thing lets me share my screen,
yeah,
I can show, and we can kind of talk through it, because I actually have Devin's logo pulled up.
Are you redoing it?
Oh yeah.
Oh, see, that's what I'm talking about. See, this is how Benji got me, guys. We were sitting there talking, and I was like, "Hey, check my website." And 10 minutes later, he's like, "Oh, I could fix this." I'm like, "Well, you know what? I ain't doing it. So go ahead."
For over 30 years, Southwest Automated Security has been the premier provider of gate operators, access controls, CCTV, and so much more. Visit southwestautomated.com today, taking dealers to the next level.
Oh,
there you are.
What do you see? Right.
forever and ever and ever. We're in the infinite loop.
Oh, are we?
Yes. It looks awesome.
Okay. Hold on. All right, so it says share my screen. And then it's asking me choose what to share. I want to show an entire screen. Okay, I got you.
Yeah. So then just blow it up. It showed me and you going into the Infinity Gauntlet. There you are.
Now what do you see?
Oh yeah, I see it.
So you see the logo.
Yep.
I'm gonna pull this over. Just give me a second. Okay. There we go.
I was getting excited again. For those people listening, they're like, what is happening? It had me and Benji going off into infinity, repeating on itself, and I'm in the background pretending I'm holding up Thanos Gauntlet the whole time. We're controlling time here. Altered reality. Sorry.
So one of the things that this is his existing logo that I pointed out to him was that there's not enough breathing room for these elements. So once you start putting all this stuff together, first of all, I know that I think he went to Fiverr and hired someone to do, which is very common. I mean, you can do that. But there are certain things that you probably need to understand about general design before you just let someone on Fiverr do it. And then they put all these chrome and textures and things in your logo. And it's like, oh, wow. I always recommend people show it to me in black and white. If you can see a logo, and I say this all the time, it's just my go-to. Matter of fact, my team, when they work on logos, they know they better not show it to me in color. They better show it to me in black and white because I'm going to want to see it in black and white. When you do that, it isolates everything and kind of helps you decide, it helps you realize what kind of issues you may have. If it stands up well in black and white, it's going to be able to be screen printed well, change the colors, embroidered, so digitized for embroidery, all those things. And then also make sure that you're getting a proper file that you can use and reuse again. So like a vector file, whether it's EPS or PDF, some sort of file format that's vector that you can use. Otherwise, you're going to end up having to get someone like me or someone else to vectorize that logo. We're looking at Kevin Steve's, logo he was using. And then we're also looking, of course, minus the red stripes. I put those in there so I can demonstrate how one of the things I noticed immediately is that the angle is not uniform.
Yeah, I see that now.
So, you can, when you put a logo at an angle, so you're communicating some things, you're communicating speed. But when you do that, you have to be careful in the design because you want everything to be as uniform as possible. And generally you want everything to have the same amount of breathing room or space between elements in order to give proper balance over the logo. But here, and then he was also using his portion of his logo as a what we call a logo mark. Mm-hmm. Some people might refer to it as a brand, but it's not. It's a logo mark. So it's a symbol, part of your symbol, part of your logo symbol. So he had broken this off and is using this. And my complaint with that was that it just doesn't flow well from here. Like I feel like it should be. He's got these picket looking elements that are running across the top. They don't even go all the way to the edge. Here or here, they're running at the same angle. And all of this, right? If you polish this up, you should be communicating to your customer, my fences are going to be level. My fences are going to be, on point, sharp. And to the naked eye, you might first think that about his logo because it's not the most terrible logo I've seen.
Yeah, no. It's cool. I mean, it's a really cool logo.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and he's got this N and this L that kind of carries on throughout. And I explained to him, you really need some breathing room between here. So one of the things that, we talked about doing, and again, this is not rebranding Okay. What we're talking about is taking a logo and modifying it to polish it and make it usable. He's starting with this concept, what I would consider a concept. And then basically what I've done is taken it and you can see here, clean things up a little bit. So here again, his original that he came to me with. And then here is the cleaner version of the logo. So he hasn't seen this yet. That's the best part. So like we're previewing his logo before he's even seen it. So, but matter of fact, you're the first person that's seen it, Nathan. So tell me what you.
I love it so much more, bringing fencing. So for anybody listening to this, if you really want to get the full effect now of this episode, go on YouTube to Protecting Your Radius podcast and pull up Benji's episode, because you got to see this stuff, Benji, real quick, that we're talking about is so important. But the problem is, for most of us as business owners or people that just want to branch out and do something different, like, we're not you, like, we're not advertisers, we're not marketers, we don't understand these things, right? So we come up with an idea, we get it going, but when you look at that third iteration where you can kind of see how you evolve the thing, I mean, my initial reaction is the lines all match. I can instantly tell that with my eye. Bringing the pickets over the N and the L, super slick, cool. It continues on. And then that fencing, just like the font and how you moved it down and expanded it out, it all just flows and makes sense. It looks like it's the correct version of probably what the original intent was.
Yes. Yeah. So you can see this line is the same, so that's my, a guide, if you will.
Yep.
It's the same. Look at the line on here. The angle that everything is.
Yeah, on the letters, every letter.
On the side, on the picket, everything's the same. And then, of course, also did a little bit more breathing room between what we call the logo mark and what one of the iterations we're going to do is we're going to take this and actually divide it off so that he can actually use that the way he intended to use it.
Mm-hmm.
And you take this logo, and if we take it and we just bring it down here, you can see a single color version of the logo. Again, I like to look at things in single color. I think we can probably have a little bit
in black.
Issue. Anyway, it's one of the things that I think that people just don't think about, when they're looking at a logo. They see something that they like the way it looks. There's a lot of times when I'm talking to someone about a design and I say, okay, don't think about your preference. Yes, obviously you're the company and, your preference does matter, but think about your target audience and who you're trying to target, and, think about what their preference would be. So like just because you love the color pink doesn't mean that your logo needs to be pink. If you're marketing to to an audience that doesn't necessarily like the color pink, or, maybe, it works so well. So you have to think about all of those things before you decide and finalize a logo. It's just super important.
Yeah.
Finish this in black.
Did you take the outlines off? There you go. Yeah. Yeah, look at that.
So it shows up really well, and everything, all the elements in there still makes everything legible and still stands out. So, and again, it's not rebranding. All it is just polishing up a concept that just wasn't quite there.
Right. It's the same way, Benji, I'll use, and I've explained it to you, but a lot of people still don't know, how'd you come up with the name Radius? I kind of explained that with my brother. And then the logo and the concept of that was my idea. So I'm like you, I love to draw. I'm an artist from when I was a kid. And so I get out my iPad and I draw 97,000 different options with all these R's and circles and, but, lines for the radius of a circle and figuring that out. And, the concept, the thought process was that, you're talking about around your property, like around something. So it's easy to get in a circular motion, which is where we come up with radius, a partial of the whole, et cetera, et cetera. So when I came up with the R, I wanted it to be timeless. Like I instantly, thought, how can I make the Apple brand of fencing?
Sure.
Yeah, good freaking luck, right? But my idea was I went on Google and I searched all these different ideas that my brother and I had come up with. So as we were coming up with the names, I was Google searching them to see if it was actually something out there. Because that's the worst thing is I got the greatest idea. And then you go on Google and someone has it branded out bad to the bone in Washington State. And you're like, all right, well, good for Washington. I could do it here in Oklahoma, but, I wanted something unique. I wanted something that no one did have, right? So when we found the word and all that stuff, I went in and I decided I wanted to do like just a typeface and start there. So I came up with radius. I looked at, how it is. There's how many millions of typeface there are now, like different fonts, right? So that's what your letters look like. You can have serif, sans serif. And this is some techie stuff, but it matters. Like all this stuff matters. If you don't understand this and you're like, I don't know what these guys are talking about, do a Google search. I'll put maybe some links in the show notes or something for just to kind of get your ideas going, because it's a cool conversation to have once you understand this stuff and see what it does. Then to talk to a professional like Benji and the team over at CleverFox.Online, because you can build something that's substantial and something that can last forever. With that being said, going back to radius, right? I found Poppins. Poppins was it. I'm like, dude, I am doing Poppins, my branding outline. Everything I ever do is going to be in freaking Poppins fonts. It has 97 variations. Hey, that's good enough for this Okie right here, right? And then I said, I knew my color scheme. So a lot of people always wonder about the color scheme. It's maize and blue. And it is true maize and blue, which matches the University of Michigan. So I grew up in Michigan. I live in Oklahoma. Bro, there ain't nothing maize and blue down here. So I have this branding masterclass because like it doesn't offend anyone. If I did crimson and cream, all the OU people are happy. The OSU people are not happy. If I do Halloween colors and it's black and orange, all the Oklahoma State people are happy. And every OU person is like, I'd never use that company. So there's a reason all of our companies like stay away from those colors, because it would, you'd lose half of your potential customer base, right? So I have a color scheme that's far, far away from here. Nobody cares, whatever, but it's a cool story for me. Because they'll see me show up in like a Michigan hoodie or a shirt or something like that. And then they're like, hey, hold on. They look at the card and they're like, are you from Michigan? Or, it kind of makes sense. But then having a simple typeface and then integrating that circular design. So when we came up with it's kind of hard to do in here. So we came up with the circle. I wanted to do a negative inversion over the R. So that's why. And you can see the logo. Everybody knows what the logo looks like, right? But the big thing, and Benji asked this right off the bat. As soon as you saw the logo, you're like, what's the line mean? Like, why is the line there? I said, all right, there's a reason for the line. So when I put the slash through the circle around the R in our logo, that is a 35-degree angle. So when my wife and I were set up in this situation that we wanted to start our own company, we always knew that this was going to be something that was to happen. We were 30 years old. We knew we were going to do our own fence company, do something out here, gate company, fence company, something. But we were 35, and that's when I set it up and said, we're going to do this. We're going to incorporate through the state and at least have this entity ready to go, right? So that is a 35-degree angle because we were 35 years old, and that sits through all of our things. So across the board, as we do different things, if there's ever an opportunity, like we were talking about, like on Devin's angles and stuff, at Radius, we look for that opportunity to use that 35-degree angle because my wife and I were 35 years old when we started the company. So,
right. That's a cool story. And I remember you telling me that and thinking, man, that's a really cool story. Doesn't have a whole lot to do with, your customer's not going to know that story, but the backstory on it is something that you could put through the About Us page or, the deep dive into your website. So it's really cool to have those types of things, as part of your logo, part of your brand identity. Yeah. And so I think that's really cool.
Or I think about if you take the time, Benji, to do a deep dive into that from the beginning. Like, imagine the story in 5-10 years from now is the company is whatever it's going to be, right? Like that story to say, this is how this started. And even like you're saying, even on like, and we haven't done that on the website yet because we're new. But as we get older, I think it would be really cool to really have a deep dive into like, how did this come about? Like what were the seeds that were planted in the beginning? And then bringing someone in, like talking about my brother being, this famous author or whatever, and stuff, and famous in his own mind, Simon, sorry, but whatever. Hey, you're still an author. Y'all, he has legitimate books. You can go to Barnes and Noble and buy them. I mean, that is like an incredible accomplishment in of itself, right? Yeah. And to have a publisher pimping it out for you, I mean, that's pretty cool. Yeah. But anyways, but like, to really see that, and everybody's story is going to be different, Benji, but put in the time, put in the effort and the energy. And that's why I wanted to talk to you about branding first, because I think that is an easy place, whether you're just starting out or your company's been around, your third generation, and it's been around for 60, 70 years. Man, that's incredible. Like, how are you harnessing that energy? Yeah. Either way, because there's energy. Is that not true? Like, there's energy, there's old energy and new energy, and neither one's bad. They're different, but like, what do we make our story? Like, what is our brand telling to the marketplace?
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing on that, a note on that, Nathan, that I want to mention for the guys that are out there listening, that your company's been around for a couple of decades. Try to incorporate your established date in your logo. It helps with brand integrity. It helps with trust. When you've been around since 1965, you need to flaunt it. You need to tell people that you've been around since 1965. It doesn't mean your logo looks like it needs to be like it was designed in 1960, but you need to tell the story. So I do EST, established or, since 1965 or something like that, incorporate it. And I've done a lot of rebranding for a lot of the fence companies and other companies too that have been around for decades, and they never really even thought about that. They were like, we've been using this brand, we've been using this logo, and, we've been around since. I talked to one of the fence contractors I talked to. I had no idea he had been around for as long as he was. And because I looked at his website, I even went to the About Us and still didn't know that he had been around since 1960, whatever. And I'm like, wow, man, we really need to incorporate that into your logo. So don't be afraid to put that there. Also, if you've been around for a couple of decades, your About Us page on your website is a great place to show black and white photos, older photos of the company, what the office used to look like versus what it does now. So you got all kinds of good stuff you could play with when you've been around for that long. So we really enjoy working with those projects too.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. I love the concept of, I think, anyone that has a company that was started in the last millennia should probably be harnessing that energy, right?
Sure.
I mean, because we're now at the point where I'm like, I hear Dan Blanc talking about, starting Fence King in 1999. I'm like, holy crap, that's 24 years ago. Gosh. I'm like, how old am I? I was in high school. Oh, okay.
Internet around then?
But the internet, that's a whole nother story.
That's a whole nother story.
Call into this website. Call into the website? that was a thing. I'm like, you have no idea. There's so much stupid stuff in the 90s with the internet. This thing called, it said at me. And I love watching those things like anchors and stuff talking about the internet. And they're like, what's this? The at. And they're like, I don't know what you mean. They're like, no, it's like a with a circle. Like it's an A inside a circle. No, it's like it's like Hoda and them from like Today Show. I'm sure you've seen that clip. Yeah. It's pretty classic because now we're sitting there thinking like my, 9-year-old son knows everything they're talking about in that. And I mean, you see these grown 40-year-old adults going, what? The internet has an at? Like, yeah. So anyways. All right, buddy. We're going to wrap this thing up, tie it up, put a bow on it. I know you texted me that before, clowning me on my clothes. But anyways, what do you want to leave everybody with about this conversation with branding? And you will be back. We have so much. Benji and I could talk forever about this stuff. So I want to harness in the final thoughts on the branding specifically for trade contractors. And it could be anybody out there, right? Whether it's fence, gates, security guys, painters, plumbers, we're all the same, right?
Yeah.
What do you think?
So my closing thought would be to make sure you think about your name very clearly, think about it, write it down, put it on paper so that you can see what it looks like. I would also say be careful with whose advice you get. So like if you're, a lot of times when we shoot an idea or a concept, to a team of people that they go back and you get all kinds of, ask 10 people, you're going to get 10 opinions. And maybe not all those opinions are qualified to give you an opinion. So just be careful about the opinions you get. And, think about the concept that you want to do. Think about your target audience and what type of jobs you want to do. So that should all be conveyed in your overall brand. And if you don't know where to start, like I said, it's not a sin to hire someone from Fiverr. If you need a quick, logo or a quick design, to hire someone from, a freelancer type of thing, or have your neighbor's daughter draw it or whatever. Then take that and shoot it over to some professionals that you have, some peers, and let everyone that actually has a qualified opinion, let them take a look at it and kind of give you their thoughts about your concept. And then try not to design it in the night and have shirts and cards and everything printed and done, and then realize that screw it, I made a really bad boo-boo.
Yes. Do not invest in that. And with that being said, Benji, I want to encourage anybody, if you're a contractor, you're a business owner, period, and you listen to this show and you want, us to take a look at it, I would love for you guys to email the show at info@protectingyourradius.com. And we could take that. I could call Benji. We could do a little synergy and send you something back real quick. It'd be super cool. It'd be really fun to, connect with a lot of you in that way. But it's always a good thing to get a second opinion. Wouldn't you agree, Benji?
Absolutely.
Especially on branding, right? Because it is so important in today's marketplace. And some people just don't see it, or some people don't want to see it. And that's okay. But there's, depending on your client base, like Benji said, there are going to be situations where that branding matters, whatever it is, and however you're approaching the market. And that's why I think, this conversation's so good. So Benji, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate you. Yeah, where can everybody find you online?
CleverFox.Online.
There you go.
Check us out there. If you are in the fence industry, we do have a special fence marketing page with our prices all laid out. We offer a discount for fence clients. If you're in a parallel industry to the fence industry, you probably fit in that same category. So
there you go. Check it out. Yeah, we'll put a link directly to that in the show notes as well. And we'll go from there. Benji, appreciate you, buddy, as always. And we will see you guys on the next episode. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
You've been listening to the Protecting Your Radius podcast from the Luxecore Studios in Bixby, Oklahoma. Thanks for sticking around, and connect with us and all of our partners at www.protectingyourradius.com. We want to thank our premier partners. Luxecore, the newest line of premium quality composite infill to slide into your FenceTrac fence system. Frame your style today. Also, FenceTrac, the world's first patented standalone stain machine. Utilizing flood coat technology, FenceTrac covers boards, pickets, posts, and any type of dimensional wood you can think of. And what better way to use your FenceTrac machine than to use the easy application Wood Defender family of stains. Wood Defender goes on easy and covers in one coat with no back brushing. And of course, the true power of our show is you, the listener. Please rate and review our show on whatever platform you consume this content. Your 5-star likes and reviews help other contractors get the message that we all want to be better and do better. And in the construction world, we can never forget that before you can be great, you've got to be good. Before you can be good, you've got to be bad. But before you can even be bad, you've got to try.